Cox Show. Find everything Marc Cox at 971talk.com/Cox.
When you look at this painting, there's sure an amazingly handsome man seated in the floor. But there's also botanicals that are going on there that nod towards his personal story. There's the chrysanthemum, which is a sort of state flower of Chicago, Illinois. There's flowers that point towards Kenya. There's flowers that point towards Hawaii. In a very symbolic way, what I'm doing is charting his path on Earth through those plants that sort of weave their way. There's a fight going on between he in the foreground and then the plants that are sort of trying to announce themselves underneath his feet. Who gets to be the star of the show? The story or the man who inhabits that story?
I want some of whatever he's taken. Because that dude reminds me of that scene out of Animal House where they're all sitting around getting stoned, and he tells them that who, for all we know, the solar system might just be the nucleus of an atom in the toenail of a giant. I mean, it's just deep stuff. That's kind of what they're hinting at. That there's so much about that picture of Barack Obama that was unveiled yesterday that is disturbing. that I think that's one way to look at it. But the mainstream media has just loved it. Vox says the Obama portraits are direct, vital, and above all, they're cool. You know what? This looks like, honestly, this looks like something that would come out of a high school art project. I mean, president's features, it looks like him and all, but the flowers, the wooden chair, anyway. I have to talk about this because it was tearing me up yesterday that I wasn't on the air and I couldn't talk about it, but I saw that my friend Chris Arps took to Facebook with his own thoughts on it, so let's get to our guest, please.
Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man?
Shout! Can you dig it? You, my friend, it must have had 100 responses to your post you put up. Many of them led by our friend Scott Jones, who was flat out offended that you were dissing these photos of Barack and Michelle Obama.
You know what? I have to say that's one of my most popular posts ever. I think it had 100 likes, dislikes. It had 200 comments. So. It's very popular. You know, I really didn't get a lot of backlash from African Americans. It was mainly Scott Kinley Jones, who you'd expect. I think most African Americans knew that painting was hideous, so they didn't really have a problem with it. I think the backlash that I got, because I added on to my quote on that picture, I said it's kind of fitting that the worst president of the United States has the worst portrait. And I think a lot of people took issue with that, but nobody really took a lot of issue with the painting except except our buddy. I've seen that.
Yeah. I was showing him the picture of somebody had photoshopped the president sitting on a toilet seat in those same flowers.
Now, I did learn. Now, I made a mistake yesterday. I always like to correct myself.
Oh, wow. Okay, please.
Those portraits won't be the portraits that are in the White House. Those portraits will be in the Smithsonian, God, it's hard to say, Institute Museum or whatever. So those aren't the official portraits that you see next to Lincoln and Reagan and JFK and everyone else.
So you're allowed a little flexibility on. So in other words, Donald Trump can pose in front of Trump Tower with like a robe and a crown on, and they can take a picture of him.
I think for that, I mean, but the official White House portrait, I think it's a little more traditional, where you're standing in front of a desk or sitting in front of a window with I think George Bush's, he's in front of a window and you see the Capitol or the Washington Monument in the background.
So what hasn't been talked about a lot, I heard Jamie mention a little bit this morning, is the Obamas got to pick who would do these photos for them each, and I don't know if they had a relationship with these artists or what. Again, I don't think it's very well done. I mean, quite frankly, it's just weird. But the artist in question, Kehinde Wiley, she's a little bit controversial with some of the stuff she's painted with that same background. Mm-hmm. with African-American woman standing in it doing what?
Holding a severed head of a white woman. I think I've seen two pictures like that.
And are those pictures in the Smithsonian?
No, I think those are in someone's private collection, I would assume, somewhere.
And what is the significance of a photo showing a African-American female holding the severed head of a white woman?
Well, as we all know, art is all about interpretation, and I don't know if the artist would particularly come to the same conclusion that I have. But when I see a picture like that, I assume that it's a backlash from white women dating black men. And so you see the black woman holding the severed head of the white woman, and
beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, that's how I would interpret it. Now, I may be wrong. I don't know. Maybe the artist hasn't. I don't know
so
if
was
they've ever
that
been interviewed about that.
Maybe Kathy Griffin was lashing out at Melania Trump when she held the president's severed head or something? We don't know.
She was lashing out at Trump for Melania.
Oh, you think? Okay, that could be. She was fighting back for the Me Too movement or something along those lines.
You know, this stuff is way deep. From Kahindi before to this, you guys are just, this conversation is over my head today.
What drew the most attention actually was not the photo of the Obamas on there, but your comment that he was the worst president ever.
Yeah, that's what got
that got a lot of people fired up. And I answered that I thought Scott was right, and he wasn't the worst president ever. He was second behind Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And, of course, nobody agreed with that either. But I pointed out, and I figured I'd get you fired up, but I never got you to chime in on it, was that while he may not have been the worst president ever, President Obama, I lump him in with LBJ and FDR in invoking progressive policies. He had Obamacare. LBJ had the war on poverty, and FDR started all of these entitlements that are bankrupting this country these days, that those three together did more damage to the republic than any three presidents I can think of.
I agree that the Great Society programs were grandiose, and I think they had good intentions, but
failed miserably.
It has failed miserably, and you can look at the black family and you can look at minorities to see the results. But as I've told you privately and here on the air, LBJ was the second Abraham Lincoln and freed black people with the civil rights bills, and I will always give him credit for that.
Okay, but he couldn't have passed them without the Republicans, right?
Right. He needed moderate Republicans to help pass the bill because Southern senators said that we will not block it, but we will not help you. So you've got to find the votes elsewhere. That's where the Republican moderates came in.
That's right. Al Gore's father and a lot of the Democrats in the Senate at that time refused to vote for it. Interesting stuff.
And I've always said I think it was very important that a Southern president pass civil rights because it made it more legitimate to the country and it made it more acceptable faster. I think if JFK would have been still around and would have tried to pass a civil rights bill, I think you would have lots of people that say this is just some Northeast liberal trying to do good stuff, and we're not for it. I think it took a Southern president to pass civil rights.
I want to get one thing we didn't mention is, do you like the Michelle Obama picture or not? I think it looks less like her than his picture does. I mean, the facial portion of his picture, there's no doubt about who it is. If you just glanced at hers, it could be one of her daughters. And I don't think it, again, it looks like something from a high school art project to me when I get to
it. Looks like, I mean, I can see a likeness of Michelle Obama, and she looks gray to me in the portrait.
Go to 11. Go to cut 11 for us. This is what the former First Lady had to say about it.
I'm also thinking about all of the young people, particularly girls and girls of color, who in years ahead will come to this place and they will look up and they will see an image of someone who looks like them hanging on the wall of this great American institution.
Yeah, they will, and that's important. Yeah. But the main reason they'll think that is because she looks 25 years younger in this photo. And so girls will look at it and see something that looks like them because this doesn't look like her.
And it's not a very well done piece of art.
It's just not. I'm not an art critic. I mean, I know it's in the eye of the beholder, but
with that turtle olive green background, or what do you call it, or robin egg?
I do have to get to a break, but I need to let Mike on the air here because he has a description of the President Obama photo I really hadn't thought about. Mike, what's on your mind?
Oh, Mark, the comment of the day was 6:30 this morning. I had coffee coming out of my nose. Guy calls Jamie Hellman and says he's not an art critic, but his interpretation of the president was him coming out of the ivy at Wrigley Field.
That could be. I can see that. I don't think there are flowers on that one. But
I just lost it.
Good stuff, Mike. Thank you for the phone call. Yeah, then now I can see that more.
Yeah,
if you look at it like that, he could be sitting with the chair up against the wall of the ivy there at Wrigley Field.
But then it trying to be halfway art critic. Look at the bottom, his feet and the flowers.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like,
they're kind of,
it doesn't
just weird.
match.
It's just weird. Tell you what, let's get to a break. That
was some important political discussion there. We just
that was some weird.
That's what I'm saying. That's all Hillary had to say about it. 314-969-9797, 866-455-9797. We'll get to some more of your phone calls here coming up in a minute. I don't know if you heard this, Chris, but I've got Aldermanic President Louis Reed's coming in the next hour to talk about this bill they're going to vote on committee tonight that would radically change the way the city of St. Louis prosecutes, investigates people holding less than 2 ounces of marijuana and all this stuff.
I'm very curious to see what you think.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk about that. And there are already some folks on the phone that want to grill me over it as well. We'll be right back.
I don't know what you think.